What's going on, guys? It's your boy Anthony back with another edition of the Fourth Man Podcast. And it's crunch time in the Big Three right now. We're heading into week 7. Two teams have been eliminated, and we have another great episode for you today. Obviously, if you've read the title, you know who we have on the show today. We have Jordan Crawford, the one of the best bucket getters in the Big Three, and just really cool opportunity with a chance to talk to someone that's not only having a lot of success in the Big Three, that had a lot of success playing in the NBA, now kind of in the later stage of his career, really just being a guy who's been in the league and been in basketball for a long time. So just someone who's had success in the NBA, having success in the Big Three, had success overseas. It was really cool just to sit down and talk with him. Along with that interview, we also got to talk about Hezi God breaking the single game scoring record. We also take a look at the standings and talk about the big wins that happened in this week's season in Boston, and then also to look back on the two eliminated teams and what went right, what mostly unfortunately went wrong for those two teams that were eliminated. So we're going to get into all of that. Before we do, if you're not already, make sure you're following the show at Fourth Man Pod on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Threads, at 4TH Man Pod. Most of the updates, most of the player transactions, a lot of highlights here recently have been coming on that channel. A big shout out to Legendary K3. I think I'm mispronouncing or butchering that username, but big shout out to him. He's been doing a lot of great work. So if you're not following, we're doing a lot of collabs and you're seeing a lot of highlights from the weeks ahead. He just put out one with Hezi God that's really blowing up, really getting to showcase kind of not just the big move that he had on Tony Allen, but also to the game overall that he had. So a big shout out to him. I want to make sure I get his name right. Legendary 3KW is actually the name on Instagram, so you make sure you're following him as well. But if not, make sure you're following the Fourth Man to see all those great highlight videos that are coming out. Also, if you want to watch the show, if you're more of a YouTube podcaster, youtube.com/fourthmanpod, make sure you're subscribed, hit the notification bell over there. And for everyone at Believe, just want to say a big thank you to you guys, as always, for giving us a platform to talk Big Three basketball. All right, let's jump into it. First topic of discussion today. Hezi God in his fourth game and his fourth week in the Big Three breaks the single game scoring record, and he hasn't even made it back to his hometown in Charlotte. That's coming up here in week 7. 35 points in a big win against Three's Company that breaks the record that was previously owned by Joe Johnson, who had 34 points against Power back in week 2 of 2021. Hezi God does it here in his fourth game in week 6, and a really crucial game. I mean, they got off to a great start in this one, kind of continued that momentum. And even when it felt like the second half was a little bit slower because he got up to such a hot start, he really ramped it up. And another game winner. I think that's his third game winner in 4 weeks. All 3 of the wins that he's contributed to for Trilogy have been game winners. And this one is the most meaningful because he's breaking a record now in the Big Three. 35 points out of 50 points. Now, it's been really interesting. As I mentioned earlier, Legendary 3KW, he made a post, and it's collabed on our page, so you can find it on our page, but recommend you follow him as well, as he does highlights for other leagues outside the Big Three. But it's been a lot of debate on, and a little bit of hate, maybe not even a little bit, a lot of it. It's been so many notifications that we're used to on our platform, but just more hate than expected on what Hezi God's doing despite dominating the league. It's pretty wild. There's a little bit of discrediting of that Hezi God, made this great move on Tony Allen, who's 41 years old. He's not the same guy anymore, but he's doing this on everybody right now in the league. He's getting to his spots. He's scoring over great defense. He's doing step back threes, getting to the cup. Doesn't really matter right now. Hezi God's getting what he wants to. So a lot of people are just seeing the move that he made on Tony Allen, but the guy scored 35 points. You think Tony Allen was covering the whole game? He's not even playing a majority of the game. So pretty wild that even when he's doing it on the big stage, when he's doing it at a professional level, still backlash. But hey, as we've seen in the NBA and we've seen with NBA players, you're going to get backlash regardless of what you do. You can't impress everybody. Not everyone's going to love you. And we are here just to give Hezi God his flowers, because obviously had a great sit down with him last week in Miami. Big win in that game, but to take down a Three's Company team that really needed a win, that's headed by Mario Chalmers and Michael Beasley, who Michael Beasley in his own right has been a great player, really in the MVP conversation this year, doing it on both sides of the ball. Hezi God still able to put up 35 points. So big shout out to you, Ryan. That's really impressive. And 35 is a tall task for whoever's going to break that record next. We've seen some 30-point games before. I thought 34 was, a kind of a tough ask for anyone to try to break. We saw Dante Green almost do it with killer threes against Bivouac a few years back. But now 35 points, and to do it on the game winner, it just goes to show that, there's not really a lot of opportunity to go out there and get 30, let alone 35. So I wouldn't be surprised if that record holds for a little while, especially with now the league being a little bit more established. A lot of great veterans and hoopers coming into the league, but also too a lot more strategic play in the league, like just getting a lot of guys involved and not so much running just like one-on-one ISO game, but we do have more teams that are running flows and actions and moving the ball a little bit more than we had in the past. So, man, I don't know. I don't know if anyone's ever. I guess I should say I think someone will beat it at some point, just because this league continues to elevate. But I don't know if it's going to be 2 years from now like it was for Joe Johnson. It was just an amazing game, and one of the more impressive wins of this season. A couple more impressive wins that we saw, as we now have 7 teams in the league sitting at 4-2. Enemies and Killer Threes both take down only 4-win teams, with Enemies beating Power by 10 and Killer Threes dominating Triplets 51-33. Really a dominant second half, I should say, headlined by another great performance, Frank Nitti, who had 27 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. I should say 28 points, excuse me. And Frank, that was probably his best game of the season. He's really a team guy who kind of does a little bit of everything, but this one he really just got in his bag and went to work. I feel like Killer Threes as a team, just talking to Miami, were a little bit let down of how that game played out against Enemies. I heard a couple guys say that they just kind of lacked energy more than they're used to. And for Frank to come out and just kind of assert himself as the captain, other guys obviously doing their parts, but Frank really putting on a big performance, really just willing them to win. Impressive win over a very impressive Triplets team, and to create even more parity, Enemies, with the help of Elijah Stewart, who had 19, Jordan Crawford, who was big down the stretch, getting buckets, but throughout the game, just doing a good job of creating that tempo or controlling that tempo. Getting his other guys involved. Get a 10-point win over a Power team that's been very, very impressive as well. So now 4 teams at 4-2, heading into week 7, with Ghost Ballers and Ball Hogs also getting wins respectively. Ghost Ballers doing it over 3-Headed Monsters, and Ball Hogs doing it over Bivouac, another team that needed to win. So a lot of teams, I think they understand the ramifications of losing right now, but I even think more so that they understand the benefits and the position they're in to now control their own destiny. And some teams took care of business this week. We're going to see who's at the top. Pretty much, I put this out earlier this week on a post, but with 4 teams at 4-2, it would come down to point differential. I think a lot of people are confused because I guess maybe it hasn't been as clear if you're just tuning in here and there as to what really separates the teams that are tied. But point differential is the biggest difference maker here. So Killer Threes, despite Enemies beating them, do have the best point differential at plus 40. I think it's plus 48, actually, to be exact, maybe plus 44. I can't remember exactly. But they're actually sitting at the top, sitting at 4-2 with the best point differential. That's followed by Ball Hogs and Ghost Ballers and Enemies. So that would mean that 2 teams would be making the playoffs for the first time if the standings ended today, or if the season ended today. Can't get it all out. Based on how the standings are, Ghost Ballers would be making it for the first time since 2017, the inception year, and then Killer Threes would be making it for the first time since they made the championship in 2019. So honestly, that would be a pretty fun little playoff game to watch, or playoff series to watch, just because there's a lot of teams that we're not used to seeing in the playoffs. Now, I think Triplets and Power are going to have something to say about it. Obviously, the defending champion Trilogy, back-to-back champions, are going to have something to say about it, with Hezi God coming in when the team was 1-1. Yeah, so he had to get his feet wet a little bit, playing alongside Briscoe, now kind of being the main scorer. Seeing what he can do, he's on a tear, and it's going to be interesting to see who can stop him. What's interesting also too in week 7 is we're going to have 2 more teams eliminated, but it's really the final 2 and 4 teams, which are Bivouac, Threes Company, and Tri-State, all at 2 and 4 right now. They're kind of duking it out to kind of get that final position, that I guess it would be that 8th spot, in hopes of just keeping their name in the hat. We'll see how things unfold. But I don't know if there's a world where everybody could be 4-4 and somehow one of those teams get in, but hey, you fight to the end. And so that'll be kind of an interesting sidebar to just kind of keep your eyes on which 2-4 team can last the longest at this point, and maybe even just get to a 4-4 record, at least put themselves in position depending on what happens. Who knows? We got a couple of 4-2 teams playing each other. We got a few 2-4 teams playing 4-2 teams, or one 2-4 team playing a 4-2 team. The other 2-4 teams are definitely duking it out to kind of get to that final 8 spot there. But unfortunately, we did lose 2 teams this week who were at the bottom of the standings. We saw 3-headed monsters and aliens both being dropped off, eliminated, and ending their season after 6 weeks. And it's pretty wild. I think 2 things to think about is that, one, 3-headed monsters has never missed the playoffs. This will be the first year in the Big Three's existence that 3-headed monsters will miss the playoffs. So pretty insane. Obviously, they took a huge hit earlier in the year with Kevin Murphy going down with a sprained MCL, PCL. And so they've been kind of reshuffling their lineups continuously throughout the year. Similar to Aliens, who didn't have Kosha Mushidi to start the year. He was their co-captain. He only played 3 games. And they've been doing a lot of shuffling as well from the beginning, having the roster with the most players on their team throughout the entire year. But they were a playoff team last year, made the playoffs for the first time. And so obviously some things have changed on that team. And ultimately they are the other team eliminated. Although they did get a huge win. They played spoiler to Tri-State, winning their one and only game of the year, 50-48 over Tri-State. I know that hurts Tri-State, who didn't have Jason Richardson. Honestly, kind of surprised that they fell, but Dusan Bullet had a magnificent game, kind of close out the season, even without Giannis Tima. And I just kind of want to take a quick look back at really the seasons for 3-headed monsters and aliens. For 3-headed monsters, you're definitely surprised, but Kevin Murphy's obviously a huge hit. You're surprised because you get the return of Reggie Evans, you have Rashard Lewis and Kevin Murphy, and you bring in a couple guys in Jordan Adams and Robert Dozier to start the year. And then Jordan Adams has to finish the season in Venezuela. Then a few weeks later, Kevin Murphy gets hurt. They try to make some changes, let go of Rob Dozier, bring in Jermaine Taylor, and they bring in Brandon Moss, and then they bring in Arthur Levinovich. So it's just been kind of, I haven't really found their Kevin Murphy, although Brandon Moss, body bag, has been extremely impressive. It does hurt to lose Kevin Murphy, but it's been kind of just not what you were expecting from the beginning in terms of for them thinking they had another ball handler in Jordan Adams to start the year. Jermaine Taylor's obviously been on that team for a while, but you're expecting a little bit different, different type of player from Jordan Adams, who had an incredible season, won a championship in Venezuela. And so I think kind of the reshuffling, getting Reggie Evans and Graham back into the lineup, Rashard Lewis kind of playing a different role, not having Mahmoud for the first time this year. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate how the season went, especially thinking that Rashard has been in this league since the beginning, and so has Reggie Evans. And they've been so close to winning a championship. You're like, oh, this could be the year. Like, they put together a really good team, and you don't see the team that's expected. For Aliens, it's kind of the same here. You got Mushidi, who had some visa issues, couldn't come over for the first 3 weeks. And you don't have Alonzo Gee, who you drafted at the beginning of the year. So you bring in Will Bynum and Tony Criswell. That wasn't supposed to be the makeup of their team. You kind of reshuffle at the last second. Obviously, I think the biggest reason for them not returning the form is the loss of Deshaun Stevens and Carlos Lasmanis. A couple of guys that made that team go, but with Carlos, you had another ball handler. Deshaun, you had the lob threat, kind of your defensive guy who was guarding your best players. And I think they really missed them both this year, as we saw. I think Ivoshev missed Deshaun Stevens a lot. I think Dusan missed Carlos Lasmanis a lot. And while Giannis Tima, who should definitely be consideration for Rookie of the Year with a magnificent season he had in the 5 games he played, it kind of just readjusted how they were going to play as well. And I felt like, too, to add on to that, I felt like Dusan was a little bit not passive in the sense of like he didn't want to shoot, he didn't want to score, but he was trying to get these other guys involved to make sure that they were familiar with how they wanted to play and make sure that they were kind of rolling for the year. And ultimately, it just led to him taking less shots. He didn't shoot the greatest from 3, unfortunately, this year. And I think a lot of those contributing factors led into Aliens having a setback from what they did in, aliens making the playoffs the first times last year. So yeah, it's pretty crazy, but also too, at the same time, it's good to see that it's good to see that the league is there's an influx of talent coming in, and that it's unpredictable. I mean, I don't want to see those teams not make the playoffs. I don't want to see those teams not get eliminated as the first two teams to be let go in the season. However, I do think that it's just really a testament to how much growth this league is having as the years go on, how much you really have to change up things when things aren't going right, and how much the teams continue to bring it and take this thing seriously to the point where you're not going to be able to predict who's going to be the top team year in and year out. I think we've seen that with triplets the past couple of years, where I know they didn't have Joe last year, but triplets who looked like they were going to dominate the league for years to come, that wasn't the case. They had kind of a 2-year stretch, and then toward the end of the end of that second year stretch, teams are starting to figure out what how to kind of stop and slow this team down. So I think it's good for the league to have unpredictability. Obviously, it hasn't been too unpredictable because Trilogy has won 3 of the 5 championships. So in that regard, Trilogy always finds a way. However, that being said, it's good to see different teams making the playoffs, and it's good to see teams trying to change their personnel in order to make the playoffs for the first time or for the first time in a while. So, we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. We got 10 teams left. Right now, it's looking like there could be at least 2 teams making the playoffs for the first time, and Big Left's technically still in the hunt, so we never know. It could be 3 teams. We don't know how the season will shake out. It'll just be tough. I think it'll really, for that 1, 2, and 4 team, it'll come to them winning the rest of their games, as well as some of those 4 and 2 teams that are playing each other. Whatever team losing for a second straight week, or I guess it would have to be a couple teams losing 2 weeks in a row, and whatever 2 and 4 team to win out. So we'll see how it shakes out. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we're geared up for a really good final 2 weeks here in the Big 3, and we've already seen some record. I want to say this too. We've seen some record-breaking performances. What I was going to say, but I want to say this too. I think this past week in Boston was one of the best weekends I've personally seen watching this league from the beginning that we might have ever had. We had a great turnout in Boston from what I saw and from what everyone said. Record-breaking performances. Ton of highlight moments. We saw a ton of ankle breakers. Michael Beasley put Amir Johnson on the ground. Maybe a travel, but they didn't call it, so I guess it's not a travel. Jordan Crawford had a great move in the corner with his own cross-up. We saw Frank Nitti ankle breaker. Nice step back midi from Doosan. Saw Ray Nixon in the corner hit a triple and foul. I mean, I don't know. Bunch of highlight moments. We saw Brandon Moss, a couple of huge dunks. So I want to say just a kudos to everybody who's embracing the league. If you're watching the league for the first time, kind of getting on board and realizing what this league's all about. I think it's cool to see. It's really cool to see how far this league has come. And despite some of the down years the past couple of years, just coming out of the not having a year during the pandemic, I was just really impressed from this past season. It was one of my favorite weeks to I guess not necessarily be a part of, but to see, from my perspective. So really cool. I'm excited for what's to come in week 7. Hezi God from Charlotte. He already put up a record-breaking performance. I mean, does he go and try to break out his own record? I don't know. I guess I wouldn't be surprised at this point at what he's doing. He's making it look easy right now. So we shall see what's to come in Charlotte, but some huge games coming up. Ghost Ballers and Trilogy will be a huge game. Ball Hogs and Triplets will be a huge game. Kill Threes and Power, another huge game. So there's 3 games that include 4 and 2 teams. And then you got Enemies playing Three's Company, not your average 2 and 4 team. And then Big Black and Tri-State. I think 2 angry teams right now, sitting where they are. Both teams have lost 3 or more games in a row. And I think both teams are angry to try to finish the season out the right way and at least put themselves in a position, even playing a little catch up. So should be interesting. All that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this half of the episode. We obviously, like I mentioned, had a great conversation with Jordan Crawford, and I hope you guys enjoyed as well. Again, make sure you're following on all social media platforms. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Got some things coming still from the weekend in Miami. And so just make sure you're tuned in over there and tapped in. And without without further ado, let's get to our interview with top three scorer in the Big Three currently and enemies Jordan Crawford. Today, we're excited to welcome on the show longtime NBA vet. He's a top three scorer in the Big Three right now. Enemies Jordan Crawford. Jordan, again, I appreciate you coming on the show, and it's been an unbelievable season so far. So I appreciate your time.
Oh man, appreciate it. Appreciate you having me, man.
100%. I had to. You've been going crazy this year. We got a chance to meet in Miami a couple weeks ago, and like I was just telling you, like I think one of the best compliments, one of the highlights of the week, is you just showing love, giving some flowers to me, and I really just wanted to say, we were trying to talk about it a little bit before the show, but this league, I think it's got the wrong stigma around it, the wrong narrative. There's a lot of really talented people in this league, and I think because of the way it was risen up, people have the wrong idea about it. What's been your, I guess, just how are you feeling after kind of your, I guess, a year and a half in this league, and what are your impressions on it now, kind of being where you're at in this league right now?
Well, I mean, I followed it from day one. You know what I'm saying? I remember when it came to Detroit back in like 2019, and I went to it, and I always knew I was gonna be in it. So, it's just about the right time. And last couple of years I've been wanting to get in it, and I mean, it's basketball. It's actually, it's you can get exposed. It's 3-on-3. The court is real big. It ain't as small as you think. And I mean, it's competition. You can't just go out there and one-on-one it to try to win. You got to really come up with a strategy. It's a game there. You got to go to a certain score. So, it's a lot of pressure on you. So, I mean, it's basketball.
100%, 100%. Definitely going to talk a lot of Big Three on this, but I want to rewind to kind of your heydays before, I guess, your journey to the Big Three, we'll call it, to a couple of moments. Obviously, I think a lot of people know you not only for your NBA career, but the dunk that you had on LeBron that ultimately disappeared. Now, I know you talked about this a couple weeks ago to some guys at CBS, and you were kind of mentioning how you just kind of wanted it to disappear because you didn't want people to have the wrong story about it, or for it to get carried away with Twitter growing. I guess when you look at it now, I mean, what was, I guess, some other reasons why you didn't really want it to come out? I mean, I feel like it's one of the more legendary dunks on maybe the greatest basketball player ever, as people say. But what are some of the reasons that you kind of just want it to be a thing of the past?
I mean, I appreciate it now more than I did when it first happened. But I mean, I was just, locked in on how good I did play at the camp. You know what I'm saying? So once I did that dunk, it kind of took away from everything. But at the end of the day, it put people's eyes on me. And then I got to follow it up with a good season at Xavier. So, I mean, I'm always been focused on my game. Even when people call me a bucket getter, it's like, nah, I'm really a point guard. I just know my scoring affect the game. So, I want people to be locked in on what's important and not,
Yeah, 100%. How did you do at that camp? Did that get you like a scholarship to Xavier, get some more colleges to send you offers, or?
Oh no, I was already in college. It was my send-off year. I mean, it was my sit-out year. It was my sit-out year, so I had transferred from Indiana to Xavier. So once that was in the middle, it was a sit-out. I was coming off a sit-out year, so it just got people, attention back on me a little bit once I'm going in to play Xavier. But it did a lot for me in terms of just propelling me to a first-round draft pick.
For sure. I was going to say probably some NBA eyes on you after that, for sure, with something that major. Where do you feel like you would rank that dunk in your career? Just now a season.
What, like career moment? You mean like career moments?
Career moment, career dunk.
I mean, sure, I ain't had that many dunks. You know what I'm saying? So that got to be one. But I mean, it's now I appreciate it. I mean, it's the first thing people recognize me for. So,
100%. The second moment I want to talk about is your time with New Orleans. I feel like this is a little underrated, but you got a chance to play with Anthony Davis and Boogie Cousins, who, a lot of people look at that duo as like a what could have been moment. In your eyes, getting a chance to play alongside them, earning a contract after that 10-day, how far do you feel like that team could have gone if they stayed healthy?
Man, listen, if it wasn't for Alvin Gentry, that team could have won a championship. And I'm going to just keep it blunt like that. I mean, it had everybody, you know what I'm saying? and they end up cutting me and bringing me back. But from Anthony Davis, DeMarcus Cousins, Drew Holiday, Rajon Rondo, me, Etwan Moore, you know what I mean? You had a team that was like, just had everything. So, you know, if it wasn't people in their small ways, man, I mean, we could have got the city of New Orleans a championship.
Man, that's crazy. What do you feel like Alvin's effect was that ultimately kind of maybe disbarred you from being able to go as far as y'all wanted to?
I mean, you know, people, people be small-minded. You know, they be caught up in themselves instead of thinking about the state of Louisiana. You know what I'm saying? And what it would have done for so many people there. So, I mean, you know, just didn't give us a full opportunity to. But that's, you know, it's a lot of business that goes into basketball
For
too.
sure.
So, you know, it'd be all that. But it was a great team, though.
For sure. Yeah, I think we saw how that played out too with AD and kind of right before he left for LA, how he felt about his time there in New Orleans toward the end. One more thing I want to talk about before we talk about the big three. I thought this was cool because you just been kind of doing things in your own way. You've been staying in your own lane and getting to the point you're at, doing your things your way. Another moment is you wearing the big baller brand shoes. First person to do that outside of the Ball family. What'd you like about those kicks? Were they just nice to hoop in, or what was the interest for you in potentially signing with them at that time?
I mean, it was the way LeVar Ball went about everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to get called crazy because you really out here trying to do something great. You know what I'm saying? So that was my thing, was supporting LeVar and him understanding like what everybody else trying to do for my kids, I can do for my kids.
Right,
so
right.
Then coming out with your own shoe and all that, I mean, it just, you know, and me, I'm a person that I respect people's hustle. I respect you not getting caught up in what other people think, and you still being able to be strong enough to go about things how you go about them if they the correct way to do it. So,
yeah,
I mean, that was my whole thing into, you know, wearing the shoes. But, you know, then, you know, to be the first one other than them to wear them in the NBA game, you know, you know, people be caught up in following, you know, so it was good to just show my support and, you know, let LeVar know you're doing the right thing, man.
Yeah, yeah. And I think too, like going back to your point, like LeVar was doing what was best for his sons, which was lost in translation, but also too, like you were saying, like everybody else wants to do it for him. And it's kind of just like the problem with today's culture is like everyone wants to jump on the train when it starts going because they want to be a part of it before it gets too big.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I mean, you got to think about the people involved in it too and how it affects them. So I love your point of that, of just like showing LeVar his love and like also too just respecting the hustle. And again, another person I feel like that just does it his own way, and we see the type of success that comes from it. You mentioned a little bit you've been following the big three for a while. The first time you saw it was really in Detroit, where you're from. I guess from that, at that point, like what really intrigued you about it outside of just the fact of 3-on-3, it's competitive league, and what is something that you saw early on, like as a spectator, that you didn't realize now playing in it?
I mean, it's the big three is real intimate. So just like it's pretty much the same when you watching it and when you playing it. It's like the same thing. You like when you watching it, you can see everything that's going on, from the trash talking, from a player being frustrated or something like. So being in it, I mean, you know, me watching it already kind of knew what to expect. I mean, the behind the scenes of things, like, you know, how to get to games and the traveling and all that stuff, you find out once you in it. But just watching it, I knew it was legit basketball right away. You know, now it's just about getting a lot of quality players in there that can just make it from game 1 to game 6 exciting.
Yeah. Who do you feel like would be a good addition to the league that maybe people aren't thinking about too much? I think a lot of people get lost in like who isn't playing in the NBA right now that was recently playing, and that's who should be playing. But as we've seen, like that doesn't always work out. Like, you know, they might not be in shape or they're not a best fit for a 3-on-3. Who's someone that you'd like to see playing alongside you or against you?
Well, I would love, you know, I'm definitely expecting to be a captain of a team next year. You know what I'm saying? But Marshawn Brooks and Lou, I think, and Lou Will, they got to get in it just for them, for their sake, and to help the league. I mean, it'll make the league look so much better. It showcase people game. You know what I'm saying? So them two, Marshawn getting in it. People haven't seen Marshawn play in some years over in the States. So, I think that'd be real exciting for him to get in it.
Yeah, it's crazy you say Marshawn. I've actually been following him for a minute, just wondering if there'd ever be an opportunity to see him playing it. Because after
I'm gonna get a minute.
Okay. I like that because he tore his Achilles and then he went crazy in China. And again, one of those things that when you're playing overseas, it gets lost in the shuffle of like how well you're doing, even though you're just coming off the NBA. So, man, if you're a captain, I think it's a.
We go. We gonna get us on the same team. We gonna really put on the show, man.
Oh man, that's crazy. Okay, that'd be dope. Let me talk about your first year last year. First off, you've had a couple of crazy drafts, but even the first one was the craziest because you weren't drafted in that. And what's funny about that is we had Dante Green on our live draft show, and during that time, this is no disrespect to anybody they picked, but after the draft had ended, we were talking about who didn't get picked, and it's like, why didn't nobody pick Jordan Crawford? I don't know if it was me who said it or if somebody else on the show said it.
It's probably you. You're the only one that gave me my respect from the jump, man. It was you. It was you.
It might have been, but it was funny because Dante was like, "Oh, I forgot he was in the draft pool." You end up getting your opportunity though with Enemies for a couple games while Elijah was out. How'd you get that opportunity? How'd it come about with Enemies?
I mean, I think I definitely think I don't really know. It had to be Nick or Gil, but I think I make people uncomfortable, man. You know what I'm saying? So I think everybody knew what I was gonna do anyway when I got in the league. So, people don't want me to steal a shine, man. That's all it was. But I've been knowing Nick since the Wizard days and even being out in LA. So I mean, it had, Nick, Nick know how much I love basketball. So being on the team and it's it happens like this for a reason, because I mean I wouldn't want to be on no other team, honestly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it worked out perfect.
Back in the draft this year, again, crazy draft. I was surprised you dropped to the second round after your 2-3 game stint. Had 17 points in your first game. Did you have a good feeling you were going to be back with Enemies, regardless of them going with Quincy? Because I know that's Zeke's boy. But did you have a feeling you'd be back with Enemies? Or were you kind of surprised that you dropped all the way to the second round for them to be able to get you on their team?
I ain't had no clue, for real. I wasn't really paying attention to it. I know I put my name in it just to make sure I was in it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I don't be talking to nobody, so I didn't know if I was going to be in it or not. But when I did, being back with that team, it fits best, because sometimes teams be doing too much and coach try to overcoach. So, I mean, I just like how it played out, because I'm even showing, that I ain't just a scorer. I get to, control the game. You know what I'm saying? Let people know, like, I show people why, even my team, I knew going into this year how I can get them to understand, was like, okay, I'm going to kill these first couple games. Then once y'all start taking it serious, I'm going to chill and get y'all going, because we just trying to win for real. So, it worked out.
Now you're getting the chance to play with Elijah, who I feel like is another underrated guy in this league. I mean, he does well. He's had some viral moments in this league, but I don't feel like he gets the flowers he deserves a lot of the times. How is it just playing with him, and what do you think of his game, being his teammate?
I mean, he make it easy on me for sure, because I know he can go score at any time. So that means I ain't got to put pressure on myself coming out the gate scoring. And then, I mean, the way he blocks shots, the way he can check the best player, he just make it to where, you know what I'm saying, we get him doing that. He do all the one-on-one and locking up the best player, and I control the other two guys, and you know what I'm saying? So he make it easy on me to where we can just know how to go get this 50 first.
Yeah, I feel like Nick has taken it a little bit more seriously. I don't know if that's because he's like a player coach now and doesn't have to play as much. I don't know if it's because Gil's not there and he doesn't have someone to crack jokes with. But what's it like just having Gil as a coach, Nick as, I guess, the player coach, just kind of like, behind you and in your corner for this team this year?
Yeah, they basketball players. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
basketball players that proved that they elite at what they do. So it's good to be in a room with them because you get to kick it with players you respect. As you know.
Yeah.
So, but then it'd be got. This is a transition for everybody. So guys be kind of filling stuff out. You know what I'm saying? I think I really helped them in a way where I came in and showed how serious I was taking it. So it
Yeah.
made everybody else be like, okay, we can take this serious. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it made it, and everybody starting to have fun. We kick with each other off the court and all that. So people seeing, that it can be useful.
Yeah, that's what's up. I want to rewind to something that you said a second ago, because you mentioned that there's some coaches in this league that kind of overdo it. They think about it too hard, and that can sometimes hurt the team. Rewind back to week 2, you guys were playing Ball Hogs. You guys had a pretty nice lead on them. And then towards the end, ended up getting tied. And I think there's a video somewhere at the moment where you can hear you being like, let's not overcomplicate it. Let's just give me the ball and I'll go score. Can you just kind of take me back to that huddle, to like the first game-winning shot that you hit this year in the Big 3?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about going to a certain score. You get tight at the end. Them last 8 points, last 10 points seem like 40 points, So, sometimes, and even me, I don't be playing basketball, like I be in and out of basketball. So when you get back into something where it's serious like that, you have to remember, like, okay, if we're going to end it, we're going to end it now. You know what I'm saying? So it was more of a thing like me understanding that I had to end it right then so people wouldn't get more tight. And so it was just me locking in, hey, look, let me do this so we can get this win. And you know what I'm saying? Everybody be more, cool out.
Do you feel like that showed like a level of like seriousness to the rest of the team, to the point where everyone's like, all right, like JC's locked in, like, we've been trying to lock in, but things haven't necessarily rolled our way in the past, but like we might have something special here?
Yeah, for sure. It helped. I think those first 4 weeks, I can bring, like, even the first game when we played Trilogy, it was important for me to show that I'm the best player out here. Even if we ain't win, I still sent the message the first week. Second week, we needed to win, sent the message. Third week, we lost, but I was still playing good. So it's sending a message that, look, I'm here every week. You got to pay attention to me. And I think that, with Q, with Isaiah, with, Elijah, Nick, everybody, as that's building up over time, they like, all right, I see what he on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then it got Q wanting to be like, nah, I'm still playing now, So it got everybody locked in to where it's like, nah, now I can do my thing. So now it'd be like, we can beat anybody.
I know. I feel like you guys are like all in sync now. Y'all are playing your best. Like I felt like Q got off to a little bit of a slow start too, trying to figure out what his role was for this team in comparison to the team he was playing with last year. This is the best enemies team in the franchise history. This is the first time they've won more than 3 games. What do you feel like is different outside of you being able to play a full season? What do you feel like is different about this team that can really propel y'all to, the first playoff berth for an enemies team?
Yeah, I mean, the guys starting to like, just want to do it, because it do become work. Like these weeks come by, they go fast. Like the game be, so instead of, people come in there kind of on some vacation type vibes, and then, when you see guys start coming together, taking practice serious, going to eat, you know what I'm saying, kind of little stuff in huddles, you just understand. It takes time for people to, realize like, okay, we can come together and do this, because it's, it's hard work. So once you get used to the hard work, it become, natural. And I think that's kind of where we at right now.
I feel that it's a business trip at this point, where it's not so much like the vacation part until, after the game potentially. What I was going to ask, someone having played in the NBA, now having played, pretty much a full season in the Big 3 with your few games last year, what do you feel like is something that people don't understand about the Big 3 that maybe gets lost and like just watching it? I guess like the way I'm trying to put it is like, I feel like we talked a little bit at the beginning that there's like certain narratives or stigmas around the league that like people are getting lost in translation. I mean, even dating back to a couple of years ago, Isaiah Thomas felt like it was disrespectful that we thought he'd be a good fit potentially for the big three. And went on Twitter and felt disrespected by it, where it was no disrespect. So where do you feel like something gets lost in translation about the league that you're noticing and feel like people would actually like it more than the outside looking in?
I mean, it's basketball. You're gonna have to prepare. You can't just go in here. Can't just go into the league and just think you can take it over and win it. You know what I mean? It's basketball. You gotta be in shape. You gotta get with your team. You gotta be in sync with your, teammates. You know what I'm saying? So the reason why it probably got a bad stigma is because people so small-minded. I mean, I'm somebody that look at myself. I keep myself on a high level. I don't think nobody should play with me when it comes to my name. But I know how dope the big three is, so I know what I can add to the big three.
Yeah, for sure.
Isaiah Thomas, you can add to the big three, but the fact that you just so locked in on thinking I need to be in the NBA, you making yourself seem smaller. You know what I'm saying? So it's the open mind you got to go into with something. Like, I mean, I'm Jordan Crawford without the NBA.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what let me know I can come to the big three, and it's everything about this is elite. You travel first class, hotels, how you get to and from games, everything is elite about the big three. So it's just all in, your head. A lot of people in the NBA that play in the NBA, they only, they still just look up almighty, they hold it on the pedestal and not understanding like, no, the big three is the big three.
Yeah. It's not so much as looking at the big three as like a small league, but looking at yourself as like, I'm a big player. I'm a big time player. I've played against the best of the best. Like I'm going to bring a lot to the table. I like that mindset. I think it's something that as the league continues to grow, I think a lot of people will start to realize as well.
I mean, they have to. Everything is elite. The commentators, it sounds like a real game when you're watching it.
Yeah.
You know what they're talking about. I mean, everything is, you just, you got to get, and that's what Cube is going through. He's trying to build something, and he's trying to build it in a world where so many small-minded people, then it's a guy like you that come around that's like, support. You like, oh, I see I can make a podcast off the big three, and I'm going to be the only one that's following every, you know what I'm saying? People see the value.
Yeah, the value is more towards like, I think there's a lot of talented people that I would like to see personally play, at a normal time and a normal schedule in the States against other talented players, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I don't want to say I come from a small town, but I come from a smaller town, not from a big city or anything. And back in my day, I used to be a journalist for like a city that wasn't recognized as much. Like there wasn't a lot of colleges coming out there and being like, hey, let's sign this guy unless they were playing at a private school. So, for me, I was putting on for a lot of people back then. I kind of think that's been my mindset too, is like, not that you guys don't have big enough likeness or name at this point to be able to put on for yourself, but it's kind of just like making other people that, like we're talking about a little bit, not thinking so much outside of the box, making them realize like, hey, like you're missing out on a great league where you're still getting a lot of good ball. Like if you love hoops, like you should be watching this. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's kind of my thought process.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why people paying attention to what you're doing, man. You covering it just like any top coverage. You know what I'm saying? You knowing what a player is giving. Like even before I got in the league, when I see you say a couple things about me, like who should go first pick, you were saying I should go first pick because you was like, man, if Jordan is still Jordan, I mean, he only 34.
I know.
If he's still Jordan, I mean, he's going to be one of the best players in this league. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I think that's another thing that gets lost too, is like guys join the NBA stuff at like 18, 19 years old. They think 34 is old. And I'm like, man, no. I mean, I'm 28, 29. I still feel like I'm 22. I'm sure you kind of feel like you're still 25, maybe younger, like you're still feeling good. So, yeah, I appreciate you just kind of showing some love there. And it's really just about putting on for the players at the end of the day. That's my mentality. It's just showcasing the league. Speaking of the league, got a big week 7 coming up, playing Three's Company, a team that's 2-4, but it doesn't feel like they should be 2-4. I think some things they can't necessarily put two great halves together. It feels like is their biggest challenge. But I'm sure you guys don't take anybody lightly. obviously they have two great, a lot of great players, but they have Michael Beasley and the Mario Chalmers of the world.
Yeah.
What do you feel like or how do you feel like you're approaching this game, and what do you feel like will make you guys successful against them in order to get to 5-2 and really put yourself in a good spot?
Well, we know this, could be their last game, so we know they're gonna play hard. And Mike Beasley, you always got somebody that can, turn on the switch. But I mean, with us, I think it's just if we do us as far as like attacking the score and then not just giving up nothing easy, it's gonna be hard, for anybody to beat us. But we know that's a team. They got Perry Jones now. They got Tony Allen, who by week is getting in more in shape. So, I mean, we know they players with experience. So, just about understanding that every week gonna be hard. And once we get used to playing to win every week, I mean, it's gonna be fun. So we just go into it like that, kind of just understanding every matchup. Every game gonna be its own game, and just play from start to finish.
Facts. Yeah, I think Perry, he's playing against his boys, his Baylor boys. This is his old team, He's been out of the league for a little bit, his old team. So he might be putting on, for potentially his final game. So maybe that's the dude to watch out for. I really like what y'all are doing, though, because like you mentioned, like you came out more aggressive as a scorer. But as we've noticed, as we've seen in the league, like, you're a point guard first. You're pass first guy more than I think people realize. And I think that was really showcased a lot early in that last game against Power before late in the game when you make a couple plays. Kind of hit Glenn Rice Jr. with a little bit of a little cross up there and ultimately able to win. So, I like him. I like it where your team's at. I feel like I always had a lot of faith in enemies, and I feel like they always let me down. So it was like, I was like, I don't know if I should keep putting them so high. I actually stopped doing rankings. I just felt like I was getting them wrong every time. But man, you got me having faith in them again. Last thing I want to ask you here is, now playing in the league for, as long as you have, who do you feel like might be the best defender that you've gone against in this big three, and that maybe someone should be watching out for on the offensive end?
I like Dominique Jones. That's my guy. I played against the Lion from Detroit, from Killer Threes. I hit some tough shots on him, but he was playing some good D. So, he been playing, he's 15-year pro. So, I think he's somebody, Jalen Johnson, somebody that I think could dominate the league, give him more opportunity.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then, my boy Kevin Murphy got hurt.
Yeah.
I wanted to play against him this year. But I mean, it's every game is unique. You know what I'm saying? That 3-on-3 make it where you just can't really take no plays off, and then bring the fire. The stuff the things that's involved into the big three makes it real like intriguing to watch.
Yeah,
yeah.
I said that was my last question, but I got a couple follow-ups on that because I want to ask you about Bring the Fire. You just said it's intriguing, but what's it like being like, man, it's corny, but in the fire, like going one-on-one in that moment?
No, it's like getting called out in front of the world. So
That's
it's crazy. Like it's like even like on both ends, like when you like the defensive end has the advantage because they probably fouled somebody, so they mad it's a foul. So they like bring the fire. Forget that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then from the offense standpoint, like me, when they did it on me the one time, my first thought was like, oh snap, I gotta score.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, oh, this is about to be one-on-one. I'm going against Corey Brewer, who I was just talking trash to. No, I gotta score. You know what I'm saying? So when you realize you in it, it is like, hold up, this shit is crazy. Like, you know what I'm saying?
The whole world's watching just you two. Like, it's not just like a recorded YouTube video. It's live and gotta make some noise.
Like anything can happen right now. Like I can fall. You know what I'm saying? He can rip the ball from me. Like, it's so much shit that can happen where you're like, hold up, this is really about to happen. All right, let's do it.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know if this is similar, but I know that a lot of teams play ones, obviously, in practice. You guys play ones, I'm sure, a lot of the big three practices, but it's like now it's kind of like opening up the doors to everybody and being like, hey, come watch this for a second.
Yeah. Now the big even getting fouled on the three and having to shoot a three for the free throw, that's like crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like all the stuff that about Big Three is real basketball though. Like they probably put a 4-point in there and all this shit make it you think like that it's gimmicks, but it really ain't no gimmicks. Like, don't just shoot a 4-pointer because it's there. You know what I'm saying? You got to really shoot it at the right time.
Yeah, there's a lot of risk to some of the things. It's strategical more than people think. Like those bring the fires. Those are challenges. You gotta make sure you use it at the right time. The 4-pointer, if you airball it, hit off the backboard, that's easy points for the other team. I mean, there's a lot more that goes into it. And also, too, I just want to ask about the talent in this league right now. And this will be my last question for you. But the talent in this league right now, even from your couple games last year, I mean, do you feel like, and even from your times watching it, do you feel like this is the best, most talented league that the Big Three has put together in terms of guys in it?
Yeah, I think it is. But I think the first year or two where it was like, probably the talent level wasn't there, but it was like more established guys that was in the NBA for a long time. It was a lot of players that took it serious. So the talent was probably down, but the seriousness of how they was playing was there. You know what I'm saying? Like when Corey Maggette and Stack and all of them, I remember just like the intensity of it. But talent-wise, I do think it's getting better and better, but it's still, that's why I say like a guy like Marshawn and Lou Will, you put them in it right now, it just make it where it legitimizes it even more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
So, but the talent is on its way to where it needs to be,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I like where the league's growing. I like that you're in the league and you got a lot of faith in it and you got a lot of ideas to help grow this. We'll see if you have a team next year, but I know the focus right now is getting enemies to a chip. So I appreciate the time. Best of luck this week against Three's Company, and I hope you have a good time in Charlotte.
Man, I appreciate it. You keep doing your thing, man. I'm following.
Appreciate it, bro. Appreciate it. Yeah. All right. That was our interview with Enemies Jordan Crawford. Just want to say a big thank you to JC for coming on the show. I didn't mention this at the top, but we got a chance to meet Jordan in Miami, and I guess I did mention it throughout the interview, but he was a guy that gave me a lot of flowers, and even on the show did that as well. So just big kudos to him. It's really cool to hear his perspective, just being open-minded and really not thinking of it so much as like what the Big Three isn't, but more of like what he is. And I that's kind of the thing that I want to piggyback on is that, yes, this is what you can bring to the table. Like there are a ton of guys out there not playing currently, or maybe that deserve a little bit more spotlight on a big stage that could add a lot to this league. Like these players are the ones making this league, and Ice Cube's trying to provide that platform. Jeff Bonnet is trying to provide that platform. So, hopefully more guys look at it, kind of like Jordan does. But a big thank you to Jordan. Again, if you're not already, make sure you're following on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Fourth Man Pod. Make sure you're following on Threads as well. Still trying to figure that out. But we're active on there. We're active. Also, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, youtube.com/fourthmanpod. Make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell. Added some shorts on there. Some of them you can see on our social media, but I got some different things coming where you're not going to be able to see it on that side. I might mention it on social media, but you're not going to be able to see the full thing. Make sure you're tuned in over there. And then a big thank you, as always, to Believe for providing us a platform to talk Big Three basketball. We greatly appreciate you guys, as always. And without further ado, hope everyone enjoys Week 7 in Charlotte. It's going to be a big one. But for now, we'll see you guys next time.